The emergency sirens echoed through every passage of the vessel Horizon's Dream, and Captain Jake Morrison understood that everyone aboard was facing their final moments. He stood on the command deck, observing the crimson warning lights flickering across all monitors. The nuclear reactor was experiencing a catastrophic failure. Not a gradual decline that could be remedied with time and expertise, but a complete system collapse. The containment barrier had fractured, allowing lethal radiation to flood the engineering compartments like a toxic tide. "How much time do we have left?" Jake inquired. His voice remained composed despite the frantic pounding of his heart against his ribs. Amy Fletcher glanced up from her engineering console. Her complexion was ashen, and her hands trembled as she double-checked the calculations. 72 hours at most, Captain. Perhaps even less. The backup systems are already beginning to malfunction. 72 hours. 3 days for 15,000 souls who had abandoned Earth to establish a new existence on the planet New Terra. 3 days for the youngsters resting in cryogenic chambers. 3 days for the farmers, educators, and medical professionals who had placed their faith in his ability to transport them safely to their new homeland. 3 days before the life support mechanisms would cease functioning, leaving them all adrift as corpses in the infinite void. Jake turned toward his communications specialist. "Transmit distress signals across all frequencies. Document our position and explain our circumstances." "Already completed, sir," the officer responded. "However, the nearest human vessel is 6 days away. They cannot reach us in time." The bridge fell silent. Everyone comprehended the implications. They were too distant from any human settlement, too remote from any assistance that could arrive before their oxygen depleted and the chill of space enveloped them. Jake settled into his command chair and briefly closed his eyes. He contemplated his daughter back on Earth, about the message he would need to record for her. He reflected on all the families aboard this vessel who had trusted him with their futures. "Continue transmitting the distress signal," he said softly. "Keep broadcasting until power fails." The hours dragged by like years. The crew worked desperately to extend the life support systems, salvaging components from non-essential areas. They managed to gain an additional 6 hours. It wasn't sufficient. It would never be enough. On the second day, something changed. "Captain," the communications officer announced, her voice sharp with astonishment. "I'm receiving a response." "But it's not human." Jake sat upright. "What do you mean, not human?" "The signal is on a frequency we've never utilized before. The language is entirely unfamiliar, but they're definitely responding to our distress call. Can you translate it?" "Working on it now." The officer's fingers danced across her console. "The computer is struggling, but I believe I've deciphered something. They're saying they're coming to assist us." Jake looked at Amy. "Is this feasible? Could there be other species in this region?" Amy slowly shook her head. "We've never established contact with any extraterrestrial life before. However, Captain, we have limited options. If they can help us, we must allow them to attempt." 12 hours later, they spotted it. The vessel was unlike anything humans had ever constructed. It was enormous, easily 5 times the size of the Horizon's Dream, and appeared to be living. The hull pulsed with gentle illumination that shifted through colors humans had no names for. Sections resembled crystal, others organic tissue, and it navigated space with an elegance that defied physics. "They're hailing us," the communications officer reported. "Audio and visual. Display it on screen." The face that appeared was beautiful and alien. The being had a vaguely humanoid form, but its skin consisted of thousands of tiny crystals that captured and scattered light in rainbow patterns. Its eyes glowed with soft blue light. When it spoke, its voice resembled music. "We are the Valhari," the being stated. Somehow the words translated into English. "We received your distress call. We have come to help." Jake stood up. "I am Captain Jake Morrison of the human colony vessel Horizon's Dream. Our reactor is malfunctioning. We have less than 50 hours before our life support fails. The Valhari tilted its head, and the crystals on its face shifted colors. We understand. We possess the materials necessary to repair your reactor. We will assist you. Why? Jake asked. The question emerged before he could restrain it. Why would you help us? You don't know us. We have nothing to offer in return. The Valhari's expression seemed to soften, though Jake wasn't certain how he could perceive this. All life is precious. All sentient beings deserve to continue their journey. We help because it is right to help. Over the next 30 hours, Jake observed the Valhari working alongside his crew. The crystalline entity leading their engineering team introduced itself as Whisper of Stars. It collaborated with Amy Fletcher, navigating the damaged reactor core with a grace and expertise that left human engineers speechless. The Valhari provided materials humans had never encountered before. Rare elements that would require decades to harvest. According to Whisper of Stars, they offered these materials freely without hesitation, without requesting anything in return. Jake watched Amy and Whisper of Stars work together. Two different species from separate worlds, communicating through the universal language of engineering and problem-solving. Despite language barriers, despite differences in their biology and culture, they understood each other perfectly. The reactor hummed back to life 47 hours after the Valhari arrived. The lights on the Horizon's Dream illuminated brightly again. The life support system stabilized. 15,000 human lives were preserved. Jake stood in the docking bay and watched the Valhari prepare to depart. An elder Valhari named Memory of Dawn approached him. The ancient being's crystals had faded to pale silver, and it moved slowly with great dignity. "Thank you," Jake said. The words felt inadequate for what he wished to express. "You saved us all. How can we ever repay you?" Memory of Dawn's face shifted through several colors before settling on warm gold. "There is no debt. We did what any benevolent being should do. Perhaps someday when you encounter others in need, you will do the same." Jake shook his head. "No, there is a debt. Humanity does not forget such kindness. I don't know how or when, but if your people ever require assistance, if you ever face danger, we will come. I give you my word." The Valhari elder seemed to smile, though its face didn't move like a human face would. "Your words are kind, Captain Jake Morrison. But we have inhabited this galaxy for 1,000,000 of your years. We have learned to avoid danger. We require no weapons, no warriors. We are content to wander the stars and help where we can. Even so," Jake stated firmly, "remember this. Remember humanity. Remember that we owe you everything. If you ever need us, call for us. We will come." Memory of Dawn placed a crystalline hand on Jake's shoulder. The touch was cool and smooth, and Jake felt an unusual warmth spread through him. "Then we will remember. Farewell, Captain. May your colony prosper." The Valhari vessel pulled away, its living hull blowing softly as it accelerated into the darkness between stars. Jake stood at the viewport and watched until it vanished completely. Behind him, Amy Fletcher approached. "We're back on course for New Terra. Captain, all systems are functioning perfectly." Jake nodded but didn't turn from the window. "Amy, I want you to create comprehensive records of everything that occurred here. Everything about the Valhari, everything they did for us. I want it stored in every database, taught to every child on New Terra." "Sir?" Jake finally turned to face her. "Humanity is young, Amy. We're just beginning to explore the galaxy. But I want every human to know about this. I want every person to remember that when we were dying in the darkness, strangers came to save us and asked for nothing in return. I want us to remember this forever." "Understood," Amy smiled. "I'll ensure it happens, Captain." The Horizon's Dream continued its journey to New Terra. The colony flourished. Children grew up hearing the story of the crystalline beings who had saved 15,000 lives. A memorial was constructed in the center of the first city with the words Jake Morrison had spoken carved in stone, "We will remember. We will come." 80 years passed. The galaxy turned. The Valhari continued their peaceful wandering among the stars, helping where they could, asking for nothing. Believing they would likely never encounter the young human race again. They were mistaken. Commander Ben Howard had been studying the same star chart for 3 hours when the signal arrived. The HSN Pathfinder was 6 months into a deep space reconnaissance mission, mapping systems on the far edge of human exploration. It was tedious work, the kind that made the crew joke about sleeping through their shifts. Ben had stopped finding the humor around month 4. Commander Lieutenant Kate Sullivan called from the communication station. "I'm detecting something unusual." Ben looked up from his star chart, grateful for any diversion. "Define unusual." Kate frowned at her screens, adjusting the filters. "It's a transmission on an old frequency. Very old. The kind we haven't used in decades." "Pirates?" Ben asked, already moving toward her station. "No, sir. This is different." Kate's fingers moved rapidly across her console. "It's the Valhari frequency." Ben froze. Every human knew about the Valhari frequency. It was stored in every ship's database, kept active and monitored. Even though no one had heard from the crystalline beings in 80 years, it was maintained out of respect, out of hope that someday humanity might hear from their saviors again. But no one expected that call to be a scream for help. Kate worked frantically to clarify the signal. The transmission was old, degraded by distance and time. Parts were garbled beyond recognition, but slowly, piece by piece, she began to reconstruct the message. Ben listened to the translation with growing horror. The Valhari home-world cluster was under attack. A species called the Krell Dominion had discovered the peaceful crystalline beings and saw only resources to exploit. 3 of the 7 Valhari sanctuary worlds had already been destroyed. The survivors were fleeing in their slow bioships, but the Krell were hunting them down one by one. The message concluded with coordinates and a simple plea: "If anyone receives this, please help us. We cannot fight. We can only run and they are faster." Ben remained silent for a long moment. Around him, the bridge crew had ceased their work. Everyone was listening. "How old is this message?" Ben asked quietly. Kate checked her readings. 3 weeks, sir. It has been traveling through space for 3 weeks before we detected it. 3 weeks. The Valhari could all be dead already, or they could still be running. Still hoping someone would hear and come. Ben made his decision in seconds. "Set course for those coordinates." "Maximum speed, sir?" "That will take us deep into unexplored territory. We should report this to Earth Command first." "We will," Ben said. "But we're also the closest ship. Send the message back to Earth with all the data we've collected. Tell them we're investigating. And Kate, mark this message Priority Alpha. Ensure it reaches the Council." The message reached Earth 6 days later. It arrived during a routine Council session, and within minutes, every screen in the chamber displayed the translated Valhari distress call. The room erupted into chaos. Council members shouted over each other. Some demanded immediate action. Others called for caution, for more information, for careful consideration of the risks. The debate grew heated, voices rising in anger and fear. Then an elderly woman stood up. Amy Fletcher was 147 years old. She had been the chief engineer on the Horizon's Dream all those decades ago. She had worked alongside Whisper of Stars to save 15,000 lives. Now she was a professor, a legend, and one of the most respected voices in human space. The room fell silent when she rose. 80 years ago, Amy said, her voice clear despite her age. I was going to die in the darkness of space. My friends were going to die. 15,000 people, including children, were going to suffocate when our air ran out. She looked around the room, meeting the eyes of every council member. Strangers came to save us. They gave us materials that took them decades to harvest. They asked for nothing. They expected nothing. When we thanked them, they told us they were simply doing what was right. Amy's hands gripped the podium before her. They saved us when we were nothing, when we were weak and helpless and had nothing to offer them. Now they're the ones who are weak and helpless. Now they need us. She paused, and her voice hardened. We are something now. We have ships and weapons and the strength they don't have. Captain Jake Morrison made them a promise 80 years ago. He said if they ever needed us, we would come. I was there. I heard him say it. And every human who knows that story knows we meant it. Amy looked directly at the council leader. We never forget a favor. That's what makes us human. That's what makes us different. So, I'm asking this council. Are we going to keep our word? Or are we going to prove we're no better than the monsters who are killing our friends? The vote took less than 6 hours. It was unanimous. Every human colony mobilized for war. The military branches coordinated the largest fleet assembly in human history. Corporate entities provided resources without question. Even civilian ships volunteered to join the effort. News spread through human space like wildfire. On New Terra, the colony that the Valhari had saved, thousands of elderly people gathered at the memorial. They laid flowers and candles and wept for the beings who had given them life. Veterans of the Horizon's Dream, now in their 90s, gave interviews and told their stories again. They saved us, one old man said, tears streaming down his face. They didn't have to. They just did. Now it's our turn. Admiral Lisa Grant was chosen to command the fleet. She was 42 years old, brilliant, and absolutely ruthless when necessary. She had never met the Valhari, but like every human, she had grown up with their story. Lisa stood on the bridge of her flagship, the HSN Redemption, and watched the fleet assemble around her. 200 warships, each carrying the finest technology humanity had developed in 80 years. Carriers and destroyers and battleships, all gathering for one purpose. Admiral, her second in command, said quietly, "Some of the other species are asking why we're doing this. They say the Valhari are already dead, that we're risking human lives for ghosts." Lisa didn't look away from the view screen. The Valhari saved 15,000 humans when they had every reason not to. When it cost them resources they could barely spare, when they gained nothing from it. She turned to face her officer. We're not doing this because it's smart or profitable or safe. We're doing it because they were kind to us when we needed it most. We're doing it because humanity keeps its promises. And we're doing it so every species in this galaxy learns what happens when you hurt our friends. The fleet prepared to depart. Engineers ran final checks on weapons systems. Marines loaded onto drop ships. Medical teams prepared for casualties. Everyone knew this might be a one-way trip. Everyone came anyway. On Earth, Amy Fletcher watched the news coverage from her apartment. She was too old to travel with the fleet, too frail to see the Valhari one more time, but she had ensured every ship carried detailed files on Valhari biology, culture, and language. If any survived, humanity would know how to help them. Commander Ben Howard and the Pathfinder reached the coordinates from the distress call first. What they discovered made his blood run cold. The sanctuary world was dead. The crystalline structures that had once housed millions of Valhari were shattered, reduced to dust that glittered in the light of the system's dying star. Debris fields stretched for thousands of kilometers. And among the wreckage, Ben could see the remains of Valhari bioships, broken and lifeless. Kate worked to analyze the destruction. "Commander, the damage patterns are consistent with high-energy weapons, multiple ships, probably a full battle fleet. This wasn't a raid. This was systematic extermination. Any survivors?" "Scanning now." Kate's voice was tight. "Wait, I'm detecting faint life signs. Very faint. There's something still alive in that debris field." Ben didn't hesitate. "Launch rescue operations. Find them." The rescue team found 47 Valhari hiding in the wreckage of their destroyed world. They were damaged, their crystalline bodies cracked and dim. Barely alive, the humans brought them aboard the Pathfinder with infinite care, treating them as gently as they would their own children. One of the rescued Valhari was old. Its crystals had faded to pale gray. When it saw the humans, it made a sound like breaking glass. The translator struggled to interpret it as words. "You came," the Valhari said. "You remembered." Ben knelt beside the injured being. "We're human. We always remember." "What's your name?" "Whisper of Stars," the Valhari replied. "I helped repair a reactor once. Long ago. A human named Amy Fletcher worked with me." Ben felt something tighten in his chest. Amy is still alive. She helped organize this fleet. We brought 200 ships. Whisper of Stars. We came to help you. The old Valhari's crystals brightened slightly. 200 ships. But you were so young, so small. We grew up, Ben said softly. And we never forgot what you did for us. The main fleet arrived 2 weeks later. Admiral Lisa Grant reviewed the data from the Pathfinder and made her decision quickly. The Krell Dominion had made a terrible mistake. They had hurt the beings that humanity loved. They had killed the peaceful crystalline people who asked for nothing but gave everything. Now they would learn what human vengeance looked like. Lisa called her commanders together. "I want intelligence on the Krell. I want to know where they came from, how many ships they have, and where their home world is. We're not just going to save the Valhari. We're going to make sure the Krell never threaten anyone again." Word of humanity's mobilization spread through the galaxy. Other species watched in confusion and concern. The humans were going to war against the powerful Krell Dominion over a debt 80 years old, for a dying species that could offer them nothing. They didn't understand. They hadn't been there when the Valhari saved 15,000 lives and asked for nothing in return. They hadn't grown up with that story, hadn't learned from childhood that kindness deserved loyalty. But they were about to learn what humanity was capable of when someone hurt their friends. The human fleet traveled through space for 3 months, following the trail of destruction the Krell had left behind. Admiral Lisa Grant stood on the bridge of the Redemption and watched the reports come in from her scout ships. Every new system they entered showed the same horror: shattered worlds, broken bioships, fields of crystalline debris that had once been living beings. "How many?" Lisa asked quietly. Her intelligence officer checked the numbers again, though they both already knew. "Best estimate, Admiral. The Valhari population was around 100 million before the Krell found them. Based on the destruction we've seen, there might be 12,000 left. Maybe less." Lisa closed her eyes. 100 million peaceful beings reduced to 12,000 in less than a year. The Krell had been thorough in their genocide. "Keep searching," she said. "Every survivor we find is a victory." Commander Ryan Cross led one of the reconnaissance teams on a fast attack ship called the Spear. He was a special operations veteran trained for the worst kind of combat, but nothing in his training prepared him for what they found at the edge of Valhari territory. The Krell harvesting station hung in orbit around a dead world. It was massive, built from dark metal that seemed to absorb light. Energy readings suggested it was still active, still processing something. Ryan gathered his team. "Intelligence says the Krell used these stations to extract resources from captured species. We're going in to see what's happening and gather data on Krell operations." "And if we find prisoners?" his second asked. Ryan checked his weapon. "Then we bring them home." The team infiltrated the station through a damaged airlock. Inside, the corridors were dark and cold. Strange machinery hummed in the walls. The air smelled wrong, like chemicals and decay. They found the holding cells in the station's lower levels. 47 Valhari were imprisoned in containment fields, suspended in glowing energy grids. But these weren't just cells. They were torture chambers. The Krell were slowly dissolving the Valhari, extracting their crystalline matrices one painful layer at a time. Ryan watched through the window of one cell and felt rage burn through him like fire. The Valhari inside was ancient. Its crystals were cracked and fading. It hung in the energy field, and every few seconds, the field would pulse. Each pulse tore away another layer of the being's body. The Valhari made no sound, but its light flickered with each wave of agony. "Sir," one of his team whispered. "We can't leave them here." Ryan was already moving. "We're not leaving anyone. Plant charges on the power conduits. We're shutting this whole place down." The battle was brief and brutal. Krell guards responded to the intrusion, but they were used to fighting peaceful Valhari, not trained human soldiers. Ryan's team moved through the station with cold efficiency, clearing rooms and freeing prisoners. When the containment fields died, the Valhari collapsed. The humans caught them gently, treating each crystalline being with infinite care. Some were too damaged to survive. They died in human arms, their light fading as they sang their death songs. The humans who held them wept, but 47 survived. 47 more Valhari pulled from the edge of death. Ryan carried one of them personally back to the ship. The Valhari was old, its body cracked and dim from the torture. But as Ryan loaded it carefully into the medical bay, the crystalline being looked at him. "Thank you," it said in a voice like distant music. "I am called Whisper of Stars. I remember humans. I remember kindness." Ryan felt something break inside his chest. "We remember you, too. You saved us once. Now it's our turn." The fleet gathered the survivors and continued their search. Every day brought more rescued Valhari, more evidence of Krell atrocities. The humans documented everything, building a case that the galaxy could not ignore. Admiral Grant called a meeting of her senior officers. The holographic display showed a map of Krell space. Hundreds of systems marked in red. "The Krell Dominion is vast," she said. "They have colonies in 300 systems. Their military fleet numbers over 2,000 ships. If we fight a traditional war, trying to protect every Valhari sanctuary, we'll lose. We don't have the numbers." Captain Nick Palmer stepped forward. He was young for a captain, only 35, but his tactical mind was legendary. "We don't fight their fleet. We cut off the head." Nick manipulated the holographic display, zooming in on a single system. Krell Prime, their throne world. Every military command runs through their central hub. Every order, every coordination. The Krell built their empire on centralized control. "You want to attack their home world directly?" another officer asked. "That's suicide." "No," Nick said calmly. "It's strategy. The Krell think like conquerors. They expect us to defend, to protect what we have. They don't expect an assault on their heart. If we destroy Krell Prime and their command structure, the Dominion collapses. Their scattered fleets will turn on each other, fighting for power. Without coordination, they can't hunt the Valhari." Lisa studied the tactical display. "What kind of defenses are we looking at?" "Heavy. 3 orbital platforms, each capable of destroying a moon. The planetary shield can withstand sustained bombardment. And their home fleet of 800 ships patrols the system constantly." The room fell silent. The numbers were overwhelming. 200 human ships against 800 Krell vessels and 3 super weapons. Colonel Sophie Martinez spoke up. "We're talking about attacking a planet with 50 billion people on it. Even if we somehow win the battle, what then? Occupation? Genocide?" "Not occupation," Nick said quietly. "Elimination. We remove Krell Prime from the equation entirely." The words hung in the air like poison. Everyone understood what he meant. Humanity had weapons they had never used in war. Terrible weapons built in the dark days when they feared alien invasion. Genesis torpedoes that could ignite a planet's atmosphere. Tectonic disruptors that could fracture a world's crust. Stellar bombs that could destabilize a sun. Weapons designed to kill planets. "This makes us no better than them," Sophie said. Her voice shook with anger and fear. "If we destroy an entire world, kill billions, we become the monsters. They killed 100 million Valhari, another officer shot back. Peaceful beings who never hurt anyone. They tortured them, harvested them like resources. Where was their mercy? The argument grew heated. Officers shouted over each other. Some demanded justice for the Valhari. Others argued for humanity's soul, for the principles that made them better than the Krell. Lisa let them argue. She needed to hear every side, every concern. This decision would define humanity for generations. If they did this, there was no going back. Finally, she raised her hand for silence. Play the recording from the harvesting station. The one Commander Cross sent us. The room speakers activated. The sound that emerged was not words or screams. It was the Valhari death songs recorded by Ryan's team. The crystalline beings dying in agony, singing their last moments of life, beautiful and horrible. The music filled the room. Lisa let it play for 30 seconds before shutting it off. In the silence that followed, she saw tears on many faces. The Krell did this, she said quietly. Not to warriors, not to soldiers, but to peaceful beings whose only crime was existing in a way the Krell found useful. They hunted them across the galaxy. They tortured them for profit. They killed 100 million innocent lives. She looked at Sophie. You're right that this decision will define us. But we already made the choice when we mobilized this fleet. We told the galaxy that humanity keeps its word, that we protect our friends, that we will go to any length to honor a debt. Lisa turned to face the entire room. 80 years ago, Captain Jake Morrison promised the Valhari that if they ever needed us, we would come. Every human child learns that story. Every person in our civilization knows we meant it. So now I'm asking you, what does that promise mean if we come here with half measures? If we fight their fleet and lose because we weren't willing to do what was necessary? She pulled up the recording of the Valhari distress call, the one that started everything. They asked for help. They're still asking, those 12,000 survivors hiding in the dark. The Krell won't stop hunting them unless we make them stop. Unless we show them that touching the Valhari means facing humanity's full wrath. Nick Palmer added quietly. We can give the civilians on Krell Prime a chance to evaluate. Broadcast a warning. Give them time to flee. Anyone who stays chooses to stand with their empire. Lisa shook her head. No warnings. The Krell gave no warnings to the Valhari. They showed no mercy to beings who couldn't fight back. We hit them hard. We hit them fast. And we make sure the galaxy never forgets what happens when someone harms our friends. The vote was close. Some officers refused to participate, making their objection known, but in the end, the majority agreed. They would strike at Krell Prime with everything they had. Old Amy Fletcher traveled with the fleet despite her age. She had insisted, pulling rank and calling in every favor. Now she sat in the medical bay of the Redemption with Whisper of Stars, the Valhari she had worked with so long ago. The crystalline being was damaged, but alive. Its light was dimmer than Amy remembered. Its body was cracked in places that might never heal. But it was alive. I never thought I would see you again, Whisper of Stars said. You were so young. Amy smiled, her ancient hand resting gently on the Valhari's crystalline surface. I'm not young anymore, but I remembered you. All of us did. Your people came for us. You brought war to save us. We brought justice, Amy corrected softly. The Krell hurt you. They killed your people. We're going to make sure they never hurt anyone again. Whisper of Stars was quiet for a long moment. Your species has grown strong. Powerful. But power can corrupt, Amy Fletcher. The path you walk now is dark. I know, Amy said. But some paths have to be walked. Some debts have to be paid. You saved 15,000 of us when you had every reason not to. The least we can do is save the 12,000 of you that remain. The fleet prepared for the assault on Krell Prime. Engineers checked weapon systems. Marines sharpened their skills in training exercises. Medical teams prepared for massive casualties. Everyone knew many would not return, but no one asked to leave. No one questioned the mission. They were human, and humans kept their promises. Admiral Lisa Grant stood on her bridge and looked at the star charts one last time. Krell Prime was 3 days away at maximum speed. 3 days until humanity showed the galaxy what revenge looked like when it shattered planets. Krell Prime hung in space like a jewel of arrogance. The planet was massive, 3 times the size of Earth, orbiting a brilliant blue giant star. 50 billion Krell lived on its surface in cities that sprawled across entire continents. The throne world of the Dominion, the seat of an empire that had conquered hundreds of species and ruled for thousands of years. 3 orbital defense platforms circled the planet like metal moons. Each one was the size of a small city, bristling with weapons that could turn a battleship into vapor in seconds. Between them, the Krell home fleet patrolled in perfect formation. 800 warships, the pride of the Dominion. Admiral Lisa Grant watched them from the Bridge of the Redemption. Her fleet had just dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the system's edge. 200 human ships against the might of the Krell Empire. "They've detected us," her communications officer reported. "They're hailing. Put it through." The face that appeared on screen was reptilian, covered in dark scales and ridges of bone. The Krell looked vaguely like Earth's ancient dinosaurs, but these creatures had evolved intelligence and cruelty in equal measure. "I am Warlord Jathik, Emperor of the Krell Dominion," the alien said. Its voice was a deep rumble, translated into English by the ship's computer. "You are human. We have heard of your species. Young, weak, foolish." Lisa kept her face neutral. "I am Admiral Lisa Grant of the Human Defense Fleet. You have attacked the Valhari. You have killed 100 million peaceful beings. We're here to make you stop." Jathik laughed. The sound was like rocks grinding together. "The crystalline cattle. We harvest them because they are useful. Just as we will harvest you when your time comes. But that time is not today. You have 200 ships. We have 800. Turn back now and we will not pursue you." "No," Lisa said simply. The Krell Emperor's eyes narrowed. "Then you will die. Your species will learn what happens to those who challenge the Dominion." "You're wrong about one thing," Lisa said. "We're not here to challenge you. We're here to destroy you. What happens next isn't a battle. It's an execution." She cut the connection before Jathik could respond. "All ships," Lisa broadcast to her fleet. "You know the mission. You know what's at stake. The Krell think we're weak because we're young. Let's show them what humanity looks like when we're angry. For the Valhari, for every life they took. Make them remember this day forever." The Krell fleet moved to intercept. 800 ships against 200. The mathematics were simple. The Krell expected an easy victory. They were wrong. Lieutenant Luke Chen sat in the cockpit of his fighter, one of 200 small craft launching from the human carriers. He was 26 years old, born on New Terra to parents who had grown up with the Valhari story. He had joined the military for one reason, to repay a debt his grandparents owed. "Green Squadron, form up on me," he called to his wing. "Target is the first defense platform. Stay tight and trust your equipment." The fighters screamed toward the Krell formation at impossible speeds. The Krell tried to target them, but the human ships were using quantum displacement drives, technology developed in secret over the past decade. Every microsecond, the fighters flickered slightly out of phase with normal space, making targeting computers useless. Luke led his squadron through the Krell fleet like a needle through cloth. Enemy ships fired at shadows, hitting each other instead. The human fighters punched through and dove toward the first orbital platform. The platform's weapons activated, filling space with energy beams and missiles. But the fighters were too fast, too agile. They moved through the defensive fire like dancers, dropping their payloads with surgical precision. Quantum torpedoes struck the platform's power core. The explosions cascaded through its structure, tearing apart the massive weapon from the inside. 17 minutes after the battle began, the first platform shattered into burning fragments. Luke pulled his fighter away from the explosion and allowed himself a grim smile. One down. Green Squadron, regroup and prepare for second run. Captain Emma Rodriguez commanded the dreadnought Unbreakable Will, the largest ship in the human fleet. Her vessel mounted humanity's first successful plasma lance, a weapon that channeled star-hot energy into a focused beam. Bring us in close to the second platform, she ordered. I want to be so close we can count the rivets. Her crew looked at her like she was insane. Getting that close to a defense platform was suicide. But Emma had studied the Krell designs. She knew their weakness. The platforms were designed to fight enemies at long range. Their weapons couldn't track targets that got too close, too fast. The Unbreakable Will accelerated directly toward the platform, dodging fire from both the station and the Krell fleet. Enemy ships tried to intercept, but Emma's escorts kept them busy. The dreadnought plowed forward, shields flaring under the punishment. Range achieved, her tactical officer called. Target locked. Fire, Emma said quietly. The plasma lance activated. A beam of contained fusion energy hot enough to burn through anything lanced out and struck the platform's central column. The weapon cut through shields, through armor, through the station's core like a knife through butter. Maintain fire, Emma ordered. Cut it in half. For 30 seconds, the Unbreakable Will poured energy into the platform. Then the station's reactor containment failed. The second platform exploded in a flash of light bright enough to blind unshielded sensors. Emma allowed herself a brief moment of satisfaction. Target destroyed. All power to engines. Get us clear before the debris field hits us. 2 platforms down. 1 to go. Commander Alex Turner looked at the tactical display and knew what he had to do. The third platform was different from the others. Intelligence had been right about that. It was powered by a captured star fragment, a piece of a sun contained in magnetic fields so powerful they bent light. The energy output was massive, making the platform's shields nearly invincible. The fleet was battering against those shields with everything they had, but nothing was working. Missiles exploded harmlessly. Energy weapons scattered and dispersed. The platform sat in space like a fortress, untouchable, and its weapons were systematically destroying human ships. Alex commanded the frigate Valiant, a small ship with a small crew. 30 people who trusted him completely. He looked at their faces on his monitor and made his choice. Attention all hands, he said calmly. I'm ordering immediate evacuation. Everyone to the escape pods. You have 2 minutes, sir, his first officer asked. The only thing that will work, Alex replied. That platform's power source is contained by magnetic fields. If we can disrupt them with a large enough antimatter explosion, the star fragment will break free and consume the station from inside. Understanding dawned on his crew's faces. That's a suicide run, Commander. Alex smiled sadly. I know, but someone has to do it. And I'm not ordering anyone to come with me. Get to the pods. That's an order. His crew hesitated. Some started to argue, but they knew him well enough to recognize when his mind was made up. One by one, they abandoned ship. Escape pods launched toward friendly vessels. All except one. Lieutenant Danny Price, his helmsman, stayed at his station. I said, evaluate, Alex said. I heard you, sir, Danny replied. But you can't pilot and arm the antimatter charges at the same time. You need me. Alex wanted to argue. Wanted to order the young man to safety, but Danny was right. And they were out of time. Then let's make this count. The Valiant accelerated toward the third platform. Krell ships tried to intercept, but the human fleet covered their approach, sacrificing themselves to give Alex a clear path. The frigate dodged and weaved, taking hits but staying on course. Charge is armed, Danny reported. Impact in 30 seconds. Alex opened a channel to the fleet. This is Commander Alex Turner to all ships. Tell my daughter I kept the oath. Tell her humanity always keeps its promises. The Valiant struck the platform's shields at full speed. The shields held for a split second. Then the antimatter charges detonated. The explosion tore through the magnetic containment fields, and the captured star fragment broke free. The platform didn't just explode. It was consumed. The star fragment expanded rapidly, devouring the station's structure, turning metal and energy into plasma. For a brief moment, a new sun blazed in orbit around Krell Prime. Then it faded, leaving only empty space where the platform had been. 3 platforms destroyed. The way to Krell Prime was open. Admiral Lisa Grant watched the tactical display with cold satisfaction. The human fleet had taken heavy losses. 40 ships destroyed. Thousands dead. But they had done the impossible. They had broken through defenses that should have stopped them. Now came the hard part. All ships, she broadcast. Target the planet. Deploy all weapons. Genesis torpedoes. Tectonic charges. Stellar disruptors. Everything we brought. I want Krell Prime turned into a memory. The Krell fleet tried desperately to stop them. The 800 ships that had seemed so numerous at the start of the battle now seemed too few. The human vessels had shown their technological superiority. Better shields, better weapons, better tactics. The Krell were losing, and they knew it. But it was too late to retreat. Too late to surrender. The humans had come for revenge, and revenge was what they would have. The bombardment began. Genesis torpedoes rained down on Krell Prime. Massive weapons designed to ignite a planet's atmosphere. They struck the surface and detonated, releasing a chain reaction that spread across the sky. The air itself began to burn, temperatures rising to levels that turned cities into ash. Tectonic disruptors followed, driving deep into the planet's crust before exploding. They shattered the continental plates, triggering earthquakes and volcanic eruptions across the entire world. Mountains collapsed. Oceans boiled. The surface of Krell Prime tore itself apart. And finally, the stellar disruptors. These weapons targeted the blue giant sun that Krell Prime orbited. They disrupted the star's fusion processes, causing it to pulse and fluctuate wildly. Solar flares erupted, washing over the dying planet with radiation that killed anything the fires and earthquakes had missed. It took 6 hours. 6 hours to reduce a world of 50 billion people into a broken, burning shell. The human fleet watched in silence as Krell Prime died, pieces of the fractured planet falling into the unstable sun. When it was done, Admiral Lisa Grant opened a broadcast on all Krell frequencies. "This is Admiral Lisa Grant of the Human Defense Fleet," she said. Her voice was cold, carrying across space to every Krell ship, every Krell colony, every corner of their empire. "You attacked the Valhari. You killed 100 million peaceful beings who never threatened you. You tortured them. You harvested them like animals. You showed no mercy." She paused, letting her words sink in. "This is humanity's response. This is what happens when you touch our friends. Krell Prime is gone. Your emperor is dead. Your command structure is destroyed. Your empire is over." Lisa leaned forward, her eyes hard as steel. "You have one chance to survive. Every Krell vessel will stand down immediately. Every prison will be opened. Every captive freed. Every harvesting station will be shut down and destroyed. You will release all Valhari survivors and return all stolen property. You will submit to war crime tribunals and face justice for what you've done." Her voice dropped to barely above a whisper, but every Krell in the galaxy heard it clearly. "Or we will visit every one of your worlds. We will shatter every planet you hold. We will hunt you across the stars until your species is nothing but a memory and a warning. Humanity never forgets a favor, and our revenge shatters planets. Choose wisely. You have 24 hours." The transmission ended. In the silence that followed, the human fleet regrouped around the debris field that had once been Krell Prime. They counted their losses and tended their wounded. They mourned the dead and honored the sacrifice, and they waited to see what the Krell would choose. The Krell Dominion collapsed in 3 weeks. Without their central command on Krell Prime, the scattered Krell fleets turned on each other. Warlords declared themselves the new emperor and fought for control. Colonies refused to follow orders from anyone. The vast empire that had ruled for thousands of years tore itself apart from within. Admiral Lisa Grant watched the chaos from the bridge of the Redemption and felt no satisfaction, only a deep, bone-deep weariness. First surrender request coming in, her communications officer reported. It's the Krell colony at Delta Serpentis. They're asking for terms. Lisa pulled up the colony's information. 12 billion Krell, mostly civilians, workers, families, not soldiers, not the ones who had tortured the Valhari. Accept their surrender, she said quietly. Standard terms. Release all prisoners. Open all facilities for inspection. Submit to war crime tribunals. Anyone who committed atrocities against the Valhari will face justice. Everyone else will be allowed to live in peace. More surrenders followed. Hundreds of Krell colonies, seeing what happened to their home world, chose to submit rather than fight. The human fleet spread out across former Krell territory, accepting surrenders and liberating prisoners. Commander Ryan Cross led teams to shut down the harvesting stations. They found more Valhari in each one, damaged and dying, but alive. The humans treated them with infinite gentleness, carrying the crystalline beings to medical ships and doing everything they could to heal them. Some were too far gone, their bodies too damaged, their light too dim. They died in human arms, singing their death songs. But thousands survived, thousands more than anyone had hoped. The galaxy watched in shock and confusion. Humanity had destroyed one of the most powerful empires in known space. They had shattered a planet and killed 50 billion Krell without hesitation. Everyone expected the humans to claim the Krell territory for themselves, to become the new conquerors. Instead, humanity did something no one predicted. They helped rebuild. Admiral Grant established humanitarian stations in Krell space. They provided food, medical care, and resources to colonies that were struggling without their central government. The humans didn't occupy the territory. They didn't claim the planets or the resources. They simply helped stabilize the region and prevent chaos. But they were absolutely ruthless about justice. War crime tribunals were established on a neutral world. Every Krell who had participated in the Valhari genocide was brought to trial. The evidence was overwhelming. Video recordings from the harvesting stations. Testimonies from survivors. Data logs showing the systematic extermination. The trials were public. The galaxy watched as Krell commanders and scientists stood before human judges and faced their crimes. Some showed remorse. Others remained defiant, claiming they were just following orders. Lisa attended one of the trials. A Krell scientist who had designed the torture fields used on the Valhari. The alien sat in the defendant's chair and showed no emotion as the evidence was presented. "Why did you do it?" the judge asked. "The Valhari were peaceful. They never threatened you. Why cause them such suffering?" The scientist shrugged. They were resources. Their crystalline structure was valuable. The pain was irrelevant. Lisa wanted to walk down there and strangle the creature with her bare hands, but that wasn't justice. Justice was cold and measured and permanent. The scientist was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison, not death. Humanity had decided they would not become executioners, even for monsters. But the guilty would spend the rest of their lives knowing what they had done. While the tribunals continued, humanity began building a sanctuary for the Valhari survivors. Hannah Morrison stood on the observation deck of the construction station and watched the project take shape. She was the great-granddaughter of Captain Jake Morrison, the man who had made the original promise to the Valhari. Now she oversaw the construction of a new home for them. The sanctuary world orbited between Mars and Jupiter in a stable position where the Valhari could live safely. Engineers were building crystalline structures based on Valhari designs, creating a home that would feel familiar to the survivors. Gardens were being planted, filled with plants from a dozen different worlds. Humans and Valhari worked together, just as Amy Fletcher and Whisper of Stars had worked together 80 years ago. Hannah walked through the partially completed structures and found Whisper of Stars examining a garden. The old Valhari's crystals were still cracked from the torture, but they glowed brighter now, healing slowly, surrounded by friends. "Do you like it?" Hannah asked. Whisper of Stars turned, and its face shifted through several colors. "It is beautiful. More than we deserve." "You deserve everything," Hannah said firmly. "You saved 15,000 of us when you had no reason to. This is the least we can do." The Valhari was quiet for a moment. "Your great-grandfather made a promise. He kept it. But this goes beyond keeping promises. You are giving us a home in your own star system, protecting us as if we were your own people." Hannah smiled. "You are our own people. That's what you don't understand. When you saved the Horizon's dream, you didn't just save 15,000 lives. You showed humanity what we wanted to be. Kind, helpful, willing to sacrifice for others. You became part of our story, part of who we are." Old Amy Fletcher never saw the sanctuary completed. She passed away at age 152, surrounded by human and Valhari friends in her apartment on Earth. Whisper of Stars was there, holding her hand as her breathing slowed. "Thank you," Amy whispered. "For saving us, for teaching us." "No," Whisper of Stars replied. Its voice was gentle, musical. "Thank you for remembering, for keeping faith, for showing the galaxy what loyalty means." Amy smiled one last time. Then she was gone. The funeral was held on Earth, but it was broadcast across human space and to every Valhari settlement. Thousands attended in person. Millions watched from afar. Amy Fletcher had become a symbol of the bond between humans and Valhari. The engineer who had worked alongside Whisper of Stars and helped save a ship full of colonists. Whisper of Stars sang at her funeral. The Valhari death song was supposed to be private, sacred, only shared among their own kind. But the ancient being sang for Amy anyway, a song of gratitude and friendship that echoed through the memorial hall. Every human who heard it wept, not from sadness, but from the beauty of it, from the knowledge that two species, so different, had found each other in the darkness and become family. The years passed. The Valhari population slowly recovered. From 12,000 survivors, they grew to 50,000. Children were born in the sanctuary world. Young Valhari who had never known the terror of the Krell, who grew up safe and protected in human space. The galaxy learned its lesson. Other species watched how humanity had responded to the Krell atrocities. They saw the absolute fury unleashed on those who had harmed the Valhari. They also saw the mercy shown to those who surrendered, the help given to rebuild. Slowly, species began to reconsider how they treated each other. Acts of kindness were remembered and honored. The strong began to protect the weak, remembering that humanity was watching, and humanity did not forget. 20 years after the shattering, a memorial was unveiled on Earth. It stood in the center of the capital city. A massive structure of human metal and Valhari crystal. The two materials woven together in a way that made it impossible to tell where one ended and the other began. The design was simple but powerful. At the base of the memorial, words were carved in both human and Valhari languages. In 2247, strangers became friends. In 2327, friends became family. We are humanity. We never forget a favor, and we never abandon our own. The memorial became a gathering place. Humans would visit to remember the story of the Horizon's dream and the debt that shaped their civilization. Valhari would come to remember their dead and to honor the species that had saved them from extinction. And children of both species would play there together, two different kinds of life learning from each other, growing up in a galaxy that was better because they existed in it. Molly Chen was 6 years old when she first visited the memorial. Her father Luke had died at Krell Prime, sacrificing his life to destroy the orbital platform. Molly didn't remember him very well, but she knew the stories. Everyone told her how brave he was, how he had fought to protect the Valhari. She stood in front of the memorial with her mother, looking up at the gleaming structure. A young Valhari approached them, its crystals bright with youth and health. "Hello," the Valhari said. "My name is Hope Returns. What is yours?" "Molly," she replied shyly. "Are you Valhari?" "Yes." "Are you human?" "Yes." Hope Returns tilted its head in a gesture that looked curious. "Our parents were friends. The Valhari and the humans. They saved each other." Molly thought about this. "My dad died saving your people. My mom says he was a hero." "Then he was," Hope Returns said simply. "Would you like to be friends like our species are friends?" Molly smiled. "Okay." The two children ran off to play in the memorial gardens, laughing together. Human and Valhari, the next generation who would grow up knowing nothing but friendship between their peoples. Molly's mother watched them go and felt tears on her face. Her husband had died for this, for a future where children could play together without fear. Where species helped each other instead of exploiting each other. Where debts of kindness were remembered and honored. It had cost them so much. Thousands of human lives. A planet full of Krell. Years of war and grief and pain. But watching those children play together, she thought maybe it had been worth it. In the depths of space, other species monitored human transmissions and learned the full story. They saw the recordings from the Battle of Krell Prime. They heard Admiral Grant's ultimatum. They watched the memorial dedication. Some species were afraid of humanity now, afraid of what the young race could do when angered, of the weapons they possessed and their willingness to use them. But most species felt something different. They felt hope. Hope that maybe the galaxy was changing. That maybe kindness could be rewarded instead of exploited. That maybe the strong could protect the weak instead of dominating them. Because humanity had proven something important. They had shown that loyalty mattered, that promises meant something, that debts of kindness deserved to be repaid no matter the cost. They had shown that even in the cold darkness of space, compassion could be stronger than cruelty. And they had shown that their greatest weapon was not their technology or their warships or their ability to shatter planets. It was their memory, their absolute refusal to forget when someone showed them kindness, their fierce protection of those they called friends, their willingness to sacrifice everything to keep their word. The galaxy had learned a lesson that day. Humanity never forgets a favor, and their revenge shatters planets. But more importantly, their friendship was eternal. In the sanctuary world between Mars and Jupiter, Valhari and humans worked together building a future. They taught each other their sciences and philosophies. They shared their art and music. They raised their children together, creating a new generation that belonged to both species. Whisper of Stars, now ancient beyond measure, watched from the gardens and sang quietly to itself. It sang of darkness and light, of death and rebirth, of strangers who became family. It sang of a young species that had been saved by kindness and had repaid that kindness with everything they had. It sang of humanity, who never forgot, who never abandoned their own, who kept their promises even when it cost them dearly. And across the galaxy, other species listened to that song and learned what it meant to be truly civilized. Not to be the strongest or the richest or the most advanced, but to be the kind who remembered kindness. To be the kind who kept their word. To be the kind who protected their friends no matter what. To be like humanity. And the echo of that lesson would ring through the galaxy for generations to come.